Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming. Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming.
taking the good with the ups and downs. I wanna see how the world turns round. Let's go adventure in the deep blue sea. Home is with you wherever that may be. Home is with you wherever that may be.
Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming. here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody.
Okay, councillors, good morning and good morning officers. I'd like to declare the meeting open for the Infrastructure Committee meeting for the 5th of December 2023. We're reaching the pointy end of the year, and it's great to see we've got these heavy agendas as we work towards the end of the year. Councillors, I'd firstly like to begin with acknowledgement to country and acknowledge the traditional custodians in the land in which we meet today, the Darumba people, and pay my respects to the elders past, present and emerging, extending that respect to our neighbouring Aboriginal peoples within our local government area, the Gungaloo Nation people, the Barada, Kabalbara, Yadamarala people, also acknowledging the Torres Strait Islander peoples whose lands are in the Torres Strait but who live and work on Aboriginal lands. Councillors, we have a couple of councillors that are attending some school functions this morning, and we'll be just a little bit late on arrival, but we'll work through the agenda, and hopefully they'll join us as soon as they're able to. So we'll have a full house, and we'll leave those open for the time being, if that's okay. We move on to confirmation of the previous minutes. Could I have a mover and a seconder with the accuracy of the minutes from the 7th of November? Is true and confirmed. Move Councillor Wickerson, seconded Deputy Mayor Councillor Fisher. I'll put that. Those in favour? Those opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Declarations in interest and matters on the agenda. Councillors, we do have one there from Councillor Smith, and I'll hand over to you, Councillor Smith. It's nearly off by heart now, this one, but I'll let you explain, and we'll deal with that. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, it's in the project delivery report as well, and it's talking about water to Mount Morgan and the pipeline. So my nephew Adam McAvoy is a partner in MTC Hire. He's got a contract to cart water to Mount Morgan on behalf of council, and my brother and my other nephew is also employed to drive for MTC. And I'll deal with the conflict by leaving the meeting when the topic of Mount Morgan Water Pipeline Project is discussed. But also the pipeline goes past my brother John McAvoy's place, and my sister Patricia McKinnon and her husband Don McKinnon goes past their place as well. So that's another conflict in the Mount Morgan water.
Okay, we'll grab those details. Make sure we capture all that on the agenda there, Councillor Smith. Thank you for that. At that time, we'll note that and make note of it and deal with it at that point. Councillor Latcham.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. It's come to my attention yesterday that my brother Damien Latcham has purchased land at the top of Razorback. I understand it's not connected to the water system of Mount Morgan, nor sewerage. But obviously the pipeline will run past it somewhat. So I'd like to declare that, but I'd like to open it to the councillors whether they think I should stay or leave.
Okay. It's property on the house. Is it land?
Property as you go up
land and
Razorback,
house.
apparently it's that ridge.
Land and house, yeah.
Land, and there's a bit of a house there.
Okay.
He doesn't even live there, so.
Righto. Councillors, any questions on that one? The corridor would go past the front of that one, yeah. I probably just from my, it's better to be safe than sorry in those ones. Councillor would probably urge on the side of caution and just ask that you leave them. Oh, that'd be my position on it. I'm not sure. How do we have to vote on that, Evan? Yeah. Well, I might test the table, and I'll move that way, that we request that you leave the meeting at that point in time.
Yeah, that's right.
Do I have a seconder? Deputy Mayor, Councillor Fisher. Any opposition to that, councillors? Councillor Rutherford?
No, Mr Mayor, I just always think if in doubt, step out and, yeah,
Just that, yeah, probably in that perception, yeah. Okay, well, I'll put that. Those in favour? Those opposed? Motion's carried. Okay, thanks, Councillor Latcham, for raising that. It was, yeah, unanimous, yeah. Okay, thanks very much for raising that, Councillor Latcham. Councillor, before I'd start, I might just hand over to Councillor Rutherford. We are donning some attire this morning, just at the start of this meeting, so we can acknowledge that. So I'll just pass over to Councillor Rutherford.
Oh, thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, we are wearing lovely attire from the Mount Morgan Rotary Club. So it is the Mount Morgan Wattle, representing the Rotary Club, and yeah, so we thought it'd be appropriate to wear it at a council meeting and acknowledge the good work that Mount Morgan Rotary Club do for that community.
That's something nice there to acknowledge that, Councillor Rutherford, and I thank you for that. Okay, councillors, that brings us into our agenda items. There's no business outstanding, nil public forums, deputations, presentation of petitions, councillor delegate reports. We'll move straight into our officers' reports. Councillors, I do note that this report was called for by Councillor Mathers, who is running a little late this morning. Martin, we might move the agenda around if councillors are comfortable with that. Okay, but I'll need a mover in a second that we move item 10.1 to later in the agenda, or just later in the agenda. We can find a time there. So I'm happy to move, and Councillor Smith second. I'll put that. Those in favour, those opposed, motion's carried. That's item 10.1. So we'll move on to the next agenda item, which is 10.2, the Protecting Our Communities program. And Martin, you didn't need to walk back. I'll hand over to you. Thank you. Good morning.
Thanks, Mayor. Morning, Mayor and councillors. This report is dealing with the funding submission that I submitted last Friday to the Protecting Our Communities program. In mid-November, we received a letter from the Queensland Reconstruction Authority inviting us to make a submission under the Protecting Our Communities program. It's a closed funding submission. That is, there's only a number of councils that have been invited to submit under this particular funding grant program. What we were invited to submit on was the Gracemere Integrated Emergency Communication System, and there'd been an allocation of $500,000 put towards it. Now, tracing back, it seems that this was an election commitment from the federal government leading into the last federal election, and was based around some conversations that we had after the Gracemere fires in 2018, where there was some communications systems problems experienced during those fires in the Gracemere and the Mount Morgan areas. What we've had to do, given that we have a general idea what the issue is, but we haven't worked through any particular solutions at this point in time, and talking to various emergency providers like QFES and police and SES and such, everyone's got a few ideas of how the problem can be resolved, but we don't have a detailed understanding what the problem is and how to resolve this. So I've decided to put a submission in that basically splits the project into two phases. One is a project development and design phase, and then a project delivery phase. So, the project development phase is essentially around understanding the problem, detailing the solutions, costing the solutions, prioritising the solutions, and then delivering those solutions. The $500,000 is capped. There's no contribution required from council, but council would be expected to pick up any overruns. So it's fairly important that we keep a tight rein on what gets funded under this program. The other thing we'll have to keep a close eye on too is I'd expect out of this that there'll be infrastructure in place that could sit with QPS, could sit with the Rural Fire, could sit with SES. So we just need to keep an eye and make sure those assets go over to the appropriate bodies and they understand that they'll be then responsible for ongoing operation maintenance costs and renewal costs into the future. So there are a number of things we need to keep an eye on. So that's essentially the project. I'm looking to deliver it through the communications subgroup of the local disaster management group. So we'll get together the communications experts from Rural Fire, QFES, Police and SES and Council, so we can work through solutions. Just seeking Council's endorsement. It did close last Friday, so I'd had to submit before getting to the Infrastructure Committee, unfortunately. Just seeking Council's endorsement for that submission.
Okay, thanks very much for that report, Martin. I'll go to questions. I've got Councillor Smith and then Councillor Wickerson. Councillor Smith.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Can I say when I saw that, I thought, what a great idea this is, because in the bad fires, and I call it the Cabra and Stanwell fires, not the Gracemere fires, because it didn't get that far, key people couldn't talk to one another because some were on UHF, some VHF, and that was the first thing that came out of the post meeting, and I was the scribe for that, and was communications was really bad. And but I just wanted to ask Martin, I mean that's 5 years ago. Is this the first funding opportunity we've had in that time? If so, it's been pretty slow coming.
There's other disaster resilience type funding programs, but this particular communications issue wasn't really on the council radar as such, because most of those communications issues were experienced between the likes of Rural Fire and QFES and QPS trying to communicate. So it hasn't really been on our radar. It is on our radar now, and we will work with those groups to deliver this $500,000 project.
And there has been that Black Summer funding as well for the zoo and other projects as well that have been received and completed as well. So this one, as it's coming through the agencies, has a bit more detail around it about that communication. So yeah, you're right, it has been a while, but it's good to see that it's finally there and we can get some funding to resolve it. Councillor Smith?
Was the black funding, did it cover communications? It was more...
It was more, yeah, I don't think it was in the same bucket of funding. Unfortunately, there's different funding opportunities, and that'd be the one there that came through from that. But we did apply for whatever was available at the time from the council side. Councillor Wickerson.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Just to back up what Councillor Smith said, in a disaster it's critical to have that communication between the different agencies, just so you can have a coordinated response to that. And as we all know, that the fires move terribly quickly. A flood we get a bit more notice about, but bushfire can happen in an instant and also change in an instant too, so we need to have that up-to-date contact with each other. Now, we did have the Local Disaster Management Group meeting last week, and Martin raised that at the committee as well, and it was strongly supported by all the agencies represented there for exactly the same reasons that we said. You know, we've got to chat to each other and to get and also support to get the communication subgroup together. It was in place a while ago, but lapsed for whatever reason. But there was a discussion about in the short term to have it back for this project, but then just to evaluate that and see whether it's worthwhile to keep that going for other events as well. There was some discussion that it may not necessarily be the members that are sitting at the table, because around the table we may not be the experts in communication. So in our case it might be Martin, and it might be some with backup from our media team or something like that, or our IT team. So it just depends on the best expert in communications from each of those groups will be most likely on that subgroup, and we'll get the best outcome. So I think it's a great approach to stage it into different like design phases and the implementation, so we spend the money the best we can without trying to spend more than what we've got, but I think we'll get a great result with that funding, the 500,000. Thank you.
Really looking forward, and it's good news to see that we've been successful. You happy to move, Councillor Wickerson? And seconded Councillor Smith. If there's no further questions, move Councillor Wickerson, seconded Councillor Smith. I'll put that. Those in favour? Those opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. Thanks very much for that report, Martin. We'll move on to our next one, the 10.3 Planning Assumptions Report, version 4. And Stuart will... Good morning.
Sorry. Gets me every time. So to date, there's been 3 planning assumptions models and 3 planning assumptions reports that have been developed that have informed prior local government infrastructure plans. The last revision was in 2019, which informed the minor amendment to the LGIP. So as I said, as we're moving into a major amendment to the LGIP, we've updated our planning assumptions model. So essentially the planning assumptions model is trying to document and identify the methodology and assumptions that have been used to project our forecasts for current employment, current population, the ratios behind gross floor area, and the timing and sequencing of future development as it moves forward. So the Planning Assumptions Report is doing that with a view to inform Council's priority infrastructure area, which is the urban area that identifies where commercial, industrial, community use and retail purposes are, and where residential, various residential is. It excludes rural residential and the rural areas. So what that means is that it's the area that we're identifying for where we're going to provide future trunk infrastructure for the next 10 to 15 years. So it's defining where the growth will be, and then we'll, as we go into the LGIP, determine what infrastructure is needed to service that growth. So in the planning assumptions model, update number 4, the changes that have been involved are largely around the population forecasts. So the planning assumptions model is required to be benchmarked against the Queensland Government Statisticians Office projections for our local government area. And so we're required to then update, they were released in 2023, so we're required to update our planning assumptions model to reflect that. It's also included any development approvals and development that's been constructed since the previous planning assumptions model. So that had a base date of 2017, so the last 5 years, I suppose, of development that's occurred. And involves any sequencing of future development based on understanding of current approvals or pre-lodgements or our understandings with our development and planning and regulatory colleagues. As we said, the planning assumptions informs our local government infrastructure plan moving forward. So the population projections, as I said, are linked to the 2023 medium series population forecast done by QGSO. Although they're lower than 2018 medium series, the growth rates are around 0.6% per annum, slightly less than our 10-year longer term average, which is around 0.9. And these population projections go out to 2046, so from now as a base year out to 2046. So to show that in a graph format here, we can see the various QGSO projections and then where the PAM sits on that. So the planning assumption sits here as the purple line there, slightly below, obviously Hive series, and the way that it's benchmarked, it's slightly less at the end there on the medium series growth there. To provide some context, there's a lot of discussion between council officers and QGSO through this process when they're updating their projections. The growth period over the next sort of 5 to 10 years is higher, so we're talking as a 0.6 over the whole period, but it's actually higher in the next 8 years, and that's predominantly, I suppose, reflecting the big infrastructure projects that are happening in the area and the changes that we're currently seeing with sort of large-scale projects, and then that sort of then reduces back, I suppose, to that longer-term average of 0.6. And noting, I suppose, here on the chart, it looks significantly higher, but the high series is only 0.7% per annum, so there's not a lot of difference between medium and high series, and so we've adopted medium series in line with previous years, and in line, I suppose, with not trying to be too ambitious, noting that this is linking back to our provision of infrastructure as we're moving forward. With employment, the employment's largely connected to our population growth, and it's brought into broad categories, and under the Minister's guidelines and rules, we're required to keep them within these 4 categories of retail, commercial, industrial and community purpose. So all the different land uses are sort of pulled in and merged into those categories. One thing that's not picked up, because we're looking at the urban area, the agricultural purposes aren't reflected within these projections here. And our community purpose encompasses health, education, social services, and arts and recreational services as well. So it's significantly higher because it encompasses that health and education and those social employment types as well. So in summary, the Planning Assumptions Report contains those assumptions informing the LGIP. We've updated it based on the last one, and it's going to inform, I suppose, moving forward our review of the Local Government Infrastructure Plan and inform the number of projects and the size of the projects that come out of that. And so that will later be brought back to Council for endorsement later in the new calendar year. Happy to take any questions.
Thanks very much, Stu. I might just make some comments to start. The document's a live document. I mean, once it's adopted, we can always come back if there is an increase in, for some reason, if there's industry that moves in, say defence or something like that, we're able to refine it or so to speak. Our challenge is the growth, and that's always been our problem going forward, and that's the issue for the council, is to look at how we can grow those jobs and growth, and that's part of the direction the council has decided to venture, and that's part of the Advanced Rockhampton team, and getting into the economic development space and what opportunities we can then provide to grow the region, and that's something there that this council's been very successful in, and we want to continue in that space as we go forward with, after these major projects, what are the major jobs that we can retain to grow the region. Our challenge is we've got a neighbouring council that's got higher growth, people choosing to live in another location but working in or travelling to and from without the rate base here. We need to stay focused on that course and make sure that we're there, but just making sure that we've got the flexibility in the plan to be able to change that should we achieve a higher growth rate than what's being predicted in that space. So that's something there we're going to need to be mindful, and something we'll work through. And I'd be keen to, regardless of the makeup of the council, would be to have this back in front of the new table. It's a bit of a shame that we're pulling it at this part of the term, but in the new term, whoever is there would be good to go over and workshop and go through it in detail about some of those assumptions and variables about what's happening in that space. So overall, I accept the position we're in now, but I think there's opportunity there going forward. Got a number of lights on around the table, so I'll start with the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Fisher, and work our way through. Thanks, Councillor Fisher.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This was a really good report, and the one thing that I took from it there was you were very conservative with what your figures were, and I think that shows, some security for the Rockhampton region. I know a couple of the other councils further north have always gone way too ambitious, and then that has caused some trouble in the past. So I think this report was a very good read, and Mr Mayor, I support that and commend the author of the report, because I think that it was very sound and it does set us for into the future. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Councillor Fisher.
Through the chair, I get to stand up here and present this, but there's obviously a wide team behind me that are doing a lot of the work, and I get to stand here and get the accolades. But yeah, Jamie Meyer and Christian Smith in particular have done the most and the bulk of this work here, and yeah, they're the ones, I suppose, that should receive that praise. So I'll pass that on to them.
Appreciate that. Thanks very much, Stu. Councillor Wickerson, Councillor Rutherford, and Councillor Smith.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. Through you to Stuart. And Mayor, you're right, if it's a live document, as we get new data come in, you can feed that into the model and keep it as accurate. I often think when I see forward projections, even though we base it on all sorts of statistical data, it's a bit like shooting. The further away the target is, the less likely you are to get a nice tight grouping on it. But the graph that showed the estimated regional population, why don't they start at the same point? Like, surely we know right now what the population is, so they shouldn't all those either low or high estimates start at the same point in 23 and then, obviously spread out from there, because we don't know the further out we get, or is there a lag time with the statistical data we get from sensors and other things.
Yeah, so through the chair, there's it's based to a certain point, but then the QGSO projections are based at a little bit of a separate date, so there's a little bit of a lag there between those. So ours was 2022, and I think theirs is based at a 2020. They based it census, and we based it based on our existing data. So there's that little bit of gap between that, and that's why they start from a separate point. But the QGSO, their various projections all start from that same point, but that's why the PAM model's just sitting a little bit lower than that. Because, yeah, they're based at slightly different dates.
Yeah. Okay, no, that makes lots of sense.
Thank you, Councillor Wiggs. And Councillor Rutherford?
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Stu, I was wondering how sensitive the document is, or the outcome of the document, in that, for instance, with Mount Morgan with water now, I mean, the growth of the planning scheme has restricted the growth in Mount Morgan. We'll be able to look at changing that. So there could be a change there. The housing crisis at the moment, we could see a change in there. Are those things enough to make a considerable change to the outcome of this document?
Yeah, so through the chair, the biggest change that's likely to occur if we see significant amounts of growth will be the dates or the time at which that growth happens. So it won't necessarily be the locations where we think growth will occur. It'll just likely be that they'll happen at a faster rate than we've currently got it forecast. With Mount Morgan, there is there probably is a possibility that there may be more growth there now they've got a more stable water supply, and that, I suppose, through future iterations, as we said, we can do interim amendments to the planning assumptions to reflect that. It's still showing some growth there in Mount Morgan, but it's a little bit of a one where we have to sort of wait and see. But Mount Morgan, there's a lot of available land, I suppose, that is within close proximity that can be serviced. So it'll be a bit of an assessment, I suppose, in that space. But with the, Gracemere and Rockhampton, the increased growth won't bring in new areas necessarily. It'll probably just exhaust, I suppose, the areas that we already have. So we won't get any great surprises. It'll be just quicker growth in the areas we've identified.
And does this also address the impact on our infrastructure from growth around us? Like the northern suburbs, as it grows, does that actually impact, and should we be allowing for that?
So through the chair, it's a bit of a hard one. So this will be linked back to the local government infrastructure plan, which is largely linked then to council's infrastructure charges as a way of, and trying to align, I suppose, that with council's long-term financial forecasts. So the northern suburbs, whilst they may have an impact on us, the growth out there at this stage, we sort of have to, as I said, it's a little bit crystal ball gazing as to when development might occur in those northern suburbs that starts to impact our network. As it currently stands, all the growth in those northern suburbs sort of hangs off the highway, but there has been those discussions around them wanting to connect to council's water and sewer and things like that, so there's implications there. But at this stage we're focusing, I suppose, on council's local government area, and then additional demands or requests will be, I suppose, outside of that, and I suppose a little bit different to council's LGIP. And we can take those on a bit of a case-by-case basis and assess that way. It's a little bit difficult to do planning for our region and planning for the neighbouring region, and trying to factor both of those in and consider the impacts that has to council's infrastructure and how that lines up with our long-term financial forecast. So we'll try and do it on a case-by-case basis as it comes along, unless, as we said, if something significant happens over the other side of Ramsey Creek, and we think that's going to connect into the network and have impacts, then we can, I suppose, go back and have a bit of a review at that time. But at this instance, we're just looking within our own local government area.
So, just one more, Mr Mayor. So you do drill into location-specific data as well? Yeah. So through the chair, the QGSO, they provide information at what they call an SA1 level, an SA2 level, which is sort of down in your suburbs, sub-suburbs area. But the model for the planning assumptions is a parcel-based model, so we're allocated to various specific parcels in those suburbs to try and understand specifically where they'll be located. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Rutherford. Councillor Smith?
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. It's a fair while since we've seen a report like this, so it's a very interesting reading. Thanks, Stuart. Just a question. Fitzroy area, that's not necessarily the old Fitzroy Shire area. It includes Gracemere, but I remember when we were amalgamated, I remember a report like this, and it included some of Livingston as well. So what is actually the Fitzroy area now?
Yeah, so through the chair, because it's been iterations of the previous model, so we had 2011 and then we went 2014, 2019 and then now, we've tried to keep it fairly consistent. So it's close, most closely aligned with the old Fitzroy area and the urban areas within that Fitzroy area, Councillor Smith. So Livingston had been excluded when Livingston de-amalgamated, and so they've been removed out of this. But for reporting basis, it was sort of easy to put them into, you know, Rockhampton, Fitzroy and Mount Morgan to align sort of similarly with the old local government areas. And that was sort of a way, I suppose, a bit of legacy of how the old model had been built and how the reporting stood. So as a basis to compare against the previous versions, we've sort of tried to keep that and brought those into broader areas, you know, within the wider regional local government area.
Okay, thank you. And just another question, thanks, Mr Mayor. You were saying rural residential is not included. Is that right? Because there is, you know, quite a few rural residential properties that are now connected to water. So
yeah, so rural residential where it, I suppose, doesn't have a connection to council's infrastructure network probably is the distinguishing point there. So where it does have a water and sewer connection, we'll be trying to anticipate that demand and load on council's infrastructure network.
okay, so when you say you don't include them, so you don't include those people as well?
So they're included in the base, so in those reporting areas, so within Gracemere, you know, like out at Windsor Street and Victoria Street out that way, those they're included in the base model because they're within that population and that reporting area. But I suppose the likes out at Alton Downs and things like that, or out further where there might be residential areas aren't included, or rural areas that aren't included.
Okay, and just another one, Mr Mayor. So you were saying with the employment one, there's quite a few sections that aren't included in that. You did say agriculture, yet when you see a graph, you know, the most employment in the area, agriculture is up there. Yeah. So why isn't it included? Yeah,
so that's probably the important thing to come back to here is what this planning assumptions model is used for. So it's being used to inform council's infrastructure within the urban area. So agriculture doesn't necessarily have a big demand on council's water network, sewer network, stormwater network, parks network. Yes, they have an impact within the road network, and we acknowledge that, but within the urban area it is fairly limited. And so because of that, it's not included because it's essentially might be imposing a demand that's not necessarily there. So we're trying to reflect the land uses and types that will have a demand on council's municipal infrastructure so that we can anticipate that moving forward to provide that with infrastructure. So it's not trying to encapsulate all the employment types within our region, it's those that are in the urban area that we think will impact our networks moving forward. And that's why agriculture is not in there. And one that's missing as well, because it doesn't have much of a demand well, it's picked up in transport, but construction is hard as well because there's no fixed address that we can say this is where all the construction is and this is where it might be doing demand on our network. So it's difficult with construction to do it as well because we can't tie them to a specific parcel because they build a house here, then they move somewhere else and they go somewhere else. So construction and agriculture are big employers, and I suppose we're acknowledging that they are big employers in the area, but for the demands on our infrastructure network, they're not included in the assessment for that.
Thanks, Councillor Smith. Good questions, and I believe that, you know, we'll see some major projects happening. I think there will be more opportunity to review this in the new council term. So I think that's a great opportunity. I see that as both a challenge but an opportunity as well. I think we've got some great opportunities there with the region going forward, and I think that's a big part of that is be able to manage that growth and deliver the services that's required. So on that, if there's no further questions to Stuart's report, I'll move. Seek a seconder. Deputy Mayor Councillor Fisher. We'll put that. Those in favour? Those opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you very much, Stuart. We'll move on to 10.4, the Bridge Renewal Program and Heavy Vehicle Safety Productivity Program funding. So again, Stuart, thanks very much for that report.
Yep, thank you, Mayor and Councillors. The submissions have been opened for Bridges Renewal Program and Heavy Vehicle Safety and Productivity Program. They're closing at the end of this month, or the 20th of December, with projects envisaged to be delivered within 3 years of the funding agreement being offered. Council officers are proposing to submit the following projects. And so we've got some details there of those. They're predominantly related to existing capital projects, so either trying to increase the scope of work or offset the cost for council. So under Bridges Renewal, we've got Scrubby Creek crossing at Fairybower Road, estimated at 2.1 million, seeking 1.685 roughly in grant funding. So council currently has 1.3 in the budget, but we're looking to, I suppose, reduce council's contribution to 421 under the 80-20 funding split for the project. This is project, or this crossings in the Bridges and Major Culverts Asset Management Plan, and sort of had a history of ongoing safety incidents associated with it and its alignment. Under the Heavy Vehicle Safety Productivity Program, we're looking to do some work out South Yamba Road. So there's an existing project out there which is widening and sealing the existing roadway, and we're looking to expand on that and continue that extent further out, seeking 3.17 million and chasing 2.54 in grant funding to support council's existing capital project from 24-25. So the work's mainly improving some horizontal alignment issues, rebuilding and improving some floodways, and increasing the seal and formation out that way. The final project is Malky 9 Mile Road, from Hopper Road to Cabra Scrubby Creek. It's around 1.82 million, seeking 1.459 in funding. There's an existing capital project for 24-25 for Malky 9 Mile Road, and essentially it's improving the horizontal alignment as you come into the approaches to the bridge at Cabra Scrubby Creek, tidying up the intersection at Hopper Road, which is on the other side of the bridge, and putting in some bridge rail protection at that location as well. So happy to take any questions from the table on those submissions.
Thanks very much, Stu. Portfolio spokesperson, Councillor Smith.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. I'm really happy with these projects that the fellows have chosen. And when we discussed them the other day, I suppose it was the first time I'd seen them, and I forgot to ask. With the Scrubby Creek crossing, that is a really, really good project because it's on a bend. It's narrow and it floods really, really quickly, and all those people get, they've got to go right around the other way, and half the time the other roads are all flooded as well. Are we raising it at all? Is it going to be a lot higher because it's very low level at the moment? It doesn't say that in the description.
Sure.
Yeah, so through the chair, it's currently like a low-level floodway, and I think it's only got a couple of like low-flow pipes underneath it. So we'll actually be proposing, yes, to raise it up, improve the alignment, and there's actually it drops down into the alignment's not great. It drops down into the floodway. We'll be looking to continue that alignment along, and there's actually a rise that goes over the top. So yeah, it'll be improving the immunity of that as it goes through that location. So yeah, currently it's got a very low flood immunity, and we're looking to significantly improve that with this project.
Yeah, and I think I read somewhere through the chair, the road's going to be straightened up to it as well.
Yeah, so at the moment it comes in and there's a couple of bends, and then it drops down into the floodway, and it's a little bit hard to see, and it's I believe it's in a 100k zone, so it's not particularly ideal with the tight bends coming in on the approaches. So this will look to have a straighter approach and a better sight distance as you go over the bridge, and it'll be wide enough so that two vehicles can pass.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think that's three really good projects. I was involved with the Malky 9 Mile Cabra Scrubby Creek intersection there. One of our team went out there to talk with a resident. I couldn't get to the meeting, so that's a really good one, and I'll let Councillor Rutherford, I'm sure she'll be excited about the South Yamba Road project. A lot of cattle and heavy vehicles in that area now, and it's getting more and more busy. So yeah, 3 great projects, and congratulations to the team for selecting those.
Thanks, Councillor Smith. Councillor Rutherford.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Yeah, fantastic projects, and I feel like said Oliver Twist, I want more. I'm just sort of wondering, Glenroy Road, Marlborough Glenroy Road, why I would have assumed that it would have really ranked quite high on the list for the Heavy Vehicle Safety and Productivity Program. Why is it not there?
So through the Chair, Glenroy Road's actually picked up under the Roads of Strategic Importance funding, which Council's received 25 million to do an improvement at the Fitzroy River crossing, and also the improvements to the road alignment on the way in as well. And then I think there's a second funding project that has Glenroy picked up in it. So under the arrangements for this, if it's got funding elsewhere, we sort of can't piggyback off that. So it's sort of looking for projects that don't have previous state or federal funding supporting them. So because Glenroy Road's picked up in that ROSI funding, which the Feds have just, in their recent infrastructure review, have confirmed that it's still in there. That's why that one, which is why I haven't put it up for this, because it's got that funding in the later years coming up.
And sorry,
Right,
Councillor, that's
thanks.
part of the Beef Roads Corridor
Yes.
announcement.
I knew that, Mr Mayor. I would be keen to understand where, because that second one you talked about, I'm not necessarily aware of. So I would be keen to understand how far that goes, because it is a very long
Yep.
road, and there are some significant issues there that I didn't believe were being addressed
Yep.
in
We,
the latest funding.
we might be able to provide that information around now that it's the funding's been there, but what those projects detail can mean.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we've got an idea of that. Yeah. Again, we'll probably have to look at the funding, because it's been a while now on the books, and escalations are going across the board. So
Yeah, no,
that's something we'll need to
fantastic.
consider in those projects as well.
Yeah.
Thanks,
All right,
Councillor Rutherford.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor, Councillor Fisher.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, I'm going to ask a question with regards within North Rockhampton and Rennie's crossing on Norman Road. I don't think it would fit this funding model, but we're getting significant bottlenecks, particularly at school times now, between those that are going to Frenchville State School and those that are going to Lighthouse, and that bottleneck at that crossing. I know that a term and a half ago it was something that was higher on the list of making it dual. I just wondered, is there a program that we've applied for to see that that's
Not for that
dual
one, no,
lane?
Council. I'm not sure what the priorities are with a number of the bridges
Yeah.
around, but we can provide that to you, because that
Oh.
one's probably outside this report.
That's why when you
Um,
said to put on a couple of those other things, I thought I'd raise that one as well, because I've had a few comments from the area just in the last week or so.
Peter, can we have a look at that, some of the urban...
Yeah, I need to just check. I don't know if they've got an urban program that
No.
I don't think we do, so we'll come back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank
There
you
are
for
a
that,
couple
Mr.
of them
Mayor.
on
Yeah.
the books I've known that we've spoken about over the years, but it's about capacity and timing. Thank you. Councillor, if there's no further questions with regards to that report, could move Councillor Smith. Seconded Councillor Rutherford. Seconded Councillor Rutherford. I'll put that. Those in favour? Those opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. Everyone's excited about bridges, so that's good. We'll move on to our next one. Thanks very much for that report, Stu. 10.5, the asset management plans, water, sewage, infrastructure. Councillors, if there's a lot of questions on this one, we could suspend standing orders and do a bit of a deep dive into it if there are questions with regards to this report, as it is quite a detailed report with lots of information in there. I'll just be guided by the table on that anyway, but we'll hand over to Dan to walk us through the report, and then we'll gauge it from there if that's necessary. Thanks very much, Dan.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. So whilst I stand here presenting the report, I've got to say the vast bulk of the work in preparing the asset management plans has been undertaken by Martin's team and Andrew over a period of time to review and revise the asset management plans. I've certainly had input and with review, but also just acknowledge the work that's been done by others in the team. So the presentation here today is really picking out some of the, we'll say, most significant points from the asset management plans overall, and excuse me, mirrors more or less the report that's in the committee agenda. So we'll just start with a general overview and description of the schemes, which won't be new to any of you. You've been here quite a while, and you're certainly aware of what we have. And they are extensive networks. So the water infrastructure is comprised generally of two main schemes. There's the Rockhampton Water Supply Scheme, which extends out to Gracemere, of course, and we also supply water through to Livingston Shire in a couple of locations from that scheme, and then the Mount Morgan Water Supply Scheme, which you will note eventually will become part of the Rockhampton Water Supply Scheme when the pipeline is completed. But at this point in time, they're the assets that we have there in place. So that's why this particular version of the document's reflecting that. Then the non-potable water supply schemes that we have, the recycled water supply schemes are part of, because we're a water service provider, they are part of what we operate. They aren't just an add-on. So we do have the Gracemere, Mount Morgan and North Rockhampton recycled water schemes. And then we have the raw water scheme where we supply quite a number of irrigators out of the Fitzroy Barrage. And they range in size from as small as a megalitre a year to a couple of hundred megalitres a year. As you can see, the overall replacement value is quite significant, which reflects the importance of these documents to guide us. The sewerage infrastructure, again, won't be anything new to any of the extent of this. We've got the Rockhampton sewerage scheme with two general treatment areas, North Rockhampton and South Rockhampton, Gracemere sewerage scheme and the Mount Morgan sewerage scheme, both comprised of typically pump stations, gravity mains, rising mains and the treatment plants. Again, significant value, just a touch under $400 million as the replacement value for that infrastructure, which to a large extent is unseen because of it's all buried, but very important infrastructure. You're doing it, are you? Yeah? Okay. So I guess one of the key elements of the asset management plans, it's all about what are the levels of service that we are seeking to provide the community out of those schemes. So there are a range of different levels of service that they refer to. There are corporate outcomes. Of course, we need financial sustainability. We seek across the whole organisation to achieve service excellence, do it in a safe way. That's not only for the community, it's for our own workers as well. We need to be accountable, and it needs to address current and future needs. We can't just look at the now. Yes, some situations or some towns would be very static without growth or other changes or challenges. We certainly don't have that, so we do need to be able to respond to those needs. We have legislative levels of service. These are only two of a myriad of legislative requirements that we satisfy. Our primary one being the Water Supply Safety and Reliability Act in Queensland, and then we also, our regulatory and environment licence conditions that we have to comply with. Like I said, there are a number of other pieces of legislation we comply with. This is just a selection. And then, of course, we have customer expectations, which we establish through our agreement to supply services to the community and how we'll do that. And they largely fall into the categories of continuity of supply in both the short and the long term, meaning that we won't let things occur that diminish our ability to ensure that continuity of supply. adequacy and quality of the services that we provide, and the responsiveness to customer requests. Now, we report on those each month to Council through the reporting we do, which are an indicator of how the assets are performing or how we're performing in operating those assets. So then we look at, as I said, we've got a situation where we've got the now and we've also got the future. So what are the, when I say future demand, it's not just about growth, it's about the future demands on those assets. We have a number of drivers that are, making us change, adjust, replace, augment those assets. We've certainly, residential and industrial growth in a relatively controlled manner. And Stuart spoke about that through the planning assumptions model. So that's the tool that informs to a certain extent what happens in this asset management plan dealing with growth. Climate change, it is something that we must embrace through all of our infrastructure and the way it affects that infrastructure or changes the expectations from the community. Changing environmental licence conditions, so that's a very important one, particularly around our treatment plants. Now that is something that, well, I suppose, I'll reflect how long I've been working in local government in water and wastewater, but certainly over the last 25 years has changed quite significantly, and that has implications on cost and again how we operate and how we plan for the future. And a driver is water conservation. It is something that with the climate we have here, of course, is ever present, and we know we have a certainly a resource that is just not endless. So the responses to those drivers, from the water perspective, we plan to provide trunk infrastructure. It's covered through our local government infrastructure plan in response to growth in different areas. We are undertaking renewals and upgrades at the Glenmore Water Treatment Plant as our, soon to be certainly our single water treatment plant, so source of treated water. The Mount Morgan Pipeline, our water meter replacement program, which we've talked about, and then system leakage management, which again is an ever-present program of work that we do and has a number of influences on our asset management planning. Sewerage, again, trunk infrastructure, so that it's about ensuring that we have the correct size and capacity of sewerage infrastructure in the correct locations to meet the demands of growth. Our gravity main rehabilitation program, it's one that has probably sat for a couple of years, but we are certainly kicking that off again. That's our primary way around dealing with the issues that inevitably occur with aged gravity sewers, either through intrusions or damage or collapses, to ensure that we can limit the inflow to those systems from groundwater in particular or from surface water. We have the Rockhampton and Gracemere sewerage strategy, which is a strategy which has some years certainly to get to fruition, but we do need to ensure that we keep an eye on progressing that. And we've got the North Rockhampton sewage treatment plant augmentation, which is well underway. So a couple of slides that just show a summary, financial summary, which certainly have a lot more detail in the actual asset management plans, but this brings out and shows that the breakup there is acquisition of new assets, the blue is renewal. So renewal is essentially replacement of like for like as they reach the end of their life. And then the green is a combination of operation and maintenance expenses on a year-by-year basis. So given this, you can see we've certainly got significant acquisition and renewal over the next couple of years, which is largely reflected for water with work at the water treatment plant in particular. Now, when we look into the future, so these plans typically look 10 years into the future, we can see that the renewal funding appears to be slightly in deficit, and that's based on what the modelling tells us we should be spending on renewals versus what we're planning to spend. I guess the easiest way to explain that, it's not a significant concern given that that particular calculation is never going to be accurate down to the last dollar, but it's giving us an indication that we're certainly not millions of dollars short, but we need to keep an eye on it. Acquisition funding, that's for new assets, is sufficient, and the O&M, operation and maintenance funding, is slightly deficient. We talk about that a little bit further on again. So operation and maintenance, meaning our ability to spend money on our daily needs of repairing or buying chemical or whatever else we need on a day-to-day basis.
Just a point on that one too though, Dan, there are opportunities for external funding to supplement some of those projects as well that are not captured in that graph.
I think that would be an accurate statement, Mr. Mayor, that's correct, yes.
That's they're not the shiny projects that the pollies like getting their photos taken with, cutting the ribbons, but they're ones there that there are funding opportunities there that can come up time to time, year to year. Thanks, Dan.
So on sewerage, so again, it's a similar slide showing that we do have a bulge of acquisition work, and that's again largely around sewerage treatment plants. Again, the renewal funding is slightly deficit. The acquisition funding is okay. In this space here though, the O&M funding, operational maintenance funding, the deficit is somewhat more significant. And again, that's caused by a number of things. We're building new treatment plants which create additional costs in relation to operation and maintenance, which is either increased from what we had before or certainly different. And again, we talk about it a bit further as we go in terms of the challenges that we have.
Question, Dan? Councillor Rutherford.
Dan, I was just wondering, with the fact that we are building new sewage treatment plants, I would have thought that there would be some efficiencies in a new system. You know, we've been nursing the old systems for quite some time. Has that been sort of put into the equation?
Yeah, look, certainly if I've got this wrong, Andrew can poke me in the back and correct me, but you are correct. So, for example, one aspect of, say, the upgrades at North Rocky Sewage Treatment Plant, the aeration system that is going in is more efficient than the old technology of aeration. So we would expect electricity costs to be slightly less. But when we build the brand new asset, our depreciation costs rises significantly. And I'd imagine that the O&M depreciation will be part of those costs. Andrew?
I think they're just straight O&M, so just operations and maintenance, they're not depreciation.
Oh, depreciation is not in that.
But it's obviously our licence conditions are different.
Yeah.
We've got more physical, electrical, mechanical assets that need to be maintained with the new treatment trains. There's also going to be more pumping costs with the longer term strategies with respect to Gracemere and what that strategy ends up being. So that's just our modelling that gives an estimate of what we believe that's going to be over the 10-year period. It's just demonstrating that what we've been funding for the last so many years is not going to be adequate going forward. It's a little bit difficult at the moment to determine what the exact number is, but based on, again, the changes in technology, the increases in treatment capacity, and again, more mechanical electrical type assets that need to be powered and maintained, as well as the expansion of the network and more pump stations, it's all factoring into that overall O&M forecast.
Andrew raised a good point that I missed there.
Dan,
that's not just increase.
Dan, Peter just wanted to add.
Oh, okay, yeah. It's currently, that's a deficit that sits there already. It's not all increase.
No, I was just going to jump onto what Andrew said, and that is, yes, we are building new plants, but as we're doing that, he touched on the most important point, our requirements of treatment are going up. So there will be more pumping, more activity, more chemicals, more costs because of the higher standards that we are raising it to. Okay, so that's the idea that we're saving power on a more efficient pump or anything electrical is true, but when we put the whole equation together, it's actually going to be using more.
It's going up, yeah. once you decommission and build new, your standards of legislation increase.
Yeah, so we've got to enter into new licence agreements for each treatment plant, and they become more stringent by nature.
Thanks, Councillor Rutherford. Thanks, Dan.
So a summary of the issues that the asset management plans, I suppose, bring to the table for us. And again, bearing in mind the asset management plans are not something that we do and then they sit on the shelf for 5 years till they're reviewed again. Because we are in a state of changes, components of them will need to be reviewed more frequently. So when we look at the particular issues that we need to deal with, water main renewals are underfunded by a small amount. The sewer gravity main renewals are underfunded. So they're two key components of our infrastructure that we need an eye to. And the current levels of O&M funding aren't adequate, which we've been talking about a bit. And like I said, I should have highlighted, it's not that that's a new issue, that's an issue that sits there now for various reasons. So what do we do to try and address those issues? We monitor our customer service standards as key indicators. A comment there, they are lag indicators, so we measure that after the fact. So we do need to be aware that we can't solely rely on when we start to not meet our customer service standards, because that means something's failing already that we probably should have addressed. The next dot point is then the bit that sits behind that from the perspective of if we're doing condition monitoring of critical components, then that's more of the indicator to ensure that we don't get to the point where our customer service standards start to fail. And that's an area where we're working on more now. So through developing condition assessment programs and also further developing our renewal programs, not just for the passive assets like the sewers or the water mains, but definitely in our active assets where we have pump stations and those types of assets, that we can do a lot more predictive and, I suppose, preventative maintenance. So part of the improvement program, again, one of the key outputs from the asset management plans is what are we going to do to improve in both those classes. One of the things that we really, I think, has been a lot of work done to get on top of is rationalising the information we have about our assets, making sure it's accurate, knowing what we've got, where it is, what its capacity is, what its age is, and where it's at in its life cycle so that we can intervene if needed. Improved processes for valuation and maintenance asset data management, it adds on to that first one. Again, we're in a process where we're still probably bedding down our asset management system that we use, the R1 system, getting people some of the new resources I've brought on into Fitzroy River Water, them applying their knowledge so that we can improve that aspect of what we do. Updating maintenance strategy and associated maintenance schedules. That's about knowing for a particular bit of equipment exactly what its maintenance requirements are, having them scheduled through the system that we have so that those things are automatically brought to the attention of whether it's an electrician or a fitter or a plumber to go out and undertake that work before we get to the point where something's not working. Further develop and implement our condition assessment programs, particularly for those active assets, pump stations and the like. Through doing all that, we can improve the reliability of our renewal forecast, then incorporating that asset criticality into the programs so that we are knowing a number of years out when we might need to be planning to replace a sewage pump station, so that we replace that before it gets to the point where it's starting to block up, not perform, and potentially create a risk of overflows in the system. And the one at the bottom is very important for me, to shift from a largely reactive, and I say that it's certainly not everything is reactive, but we do get consumed by the immediate reactive needs because they're the things that must be done today. And we need to create the balance with also having the correct resources to be able to be continuing to undertake our planned activities while still reacting. Because we've been in a situation where resources get largely consumed by the reactive needs, and then even if we did have planned activities, they don't get done. So we're looking to restore that balance in a way that then shifts our focus away from being so reactive. And I think that might be the last slide on the... So yeah, this is just a fairly tight summary from the documents, which I believe are in the agenda, which Andrew's team have prepared over 6 months or more of effort. And there's no doubt we'll be renewing them next year as things change in our asset, particularly our asset management matures.
Yeah. And can I just acknowledge the work that the team have done? Over the last 3 years since my taking over as mayor, we've really focused on the assets and what that means, e.g. the North Rocky augmentation, water to Mount Morgan, and looking at the future of the Fitzroy, Gracemere to Rockhampton system, and the renewal of the Glenmore water treatment plant. They're no small projects. One and alone, and my time on council would have been a big project. We've done a number of them over the last few years, so everyone needs to take some credit and from the table to the elected body to support those projects to the level where we're at the moment. But it's critical to have those asset management plans in place for the future of those assets going forward, so we can monitor and make sure that we're renewing and replacing and creating for the future. So these are really meaty documents, and one I'd like to, we could have spent a whole week on workshops going through, so I'm a little bit disappointed that we're getting this at the end of a council term, but I'd be really keen to, the new council, whatever the makeup is, have this as one of the first priorities back to the table to be able to bed down some of those big projects there that's been working on. Okay, that's probably enough from me. I'll go to questions. Councillor Rutherford.
Mr Mayor, certainly echo your words there in the things that have been undertaken in this area, water and sewerage, huge things. I think if they were sexier projects, everyone would know about them, but because they're not, they're massive projects that have taken, a great deal of effort from the staff and everyone to pull together. So, and this report, congratulations on this report, a lot of information in it. Can I please just ask about why our water allocation is not treated as an asset and considered in this document as well? Because without that, then the hard assets don't line up. So when do we look at our water allocations as an asset and feed them into this?
Good question.
Yeah, I'm not sure I can answer that one either.
I guess there are a couple of different ways of looking at that. If we think about it as a financial, something that has value to council, absolutely, it does. But in itself, the allocation can't actually provide the level of service to the community. Therein we need the barrage, the treatment plant, the pipes and the pumps and the reservoirs to make that allocation something that is then a benefit to the community. So from that, these documents, the asset management plans, these are about all the things that go to taking that right to take water out of the river, which you're right, correct, it has a value in itself, but it doesn't come into here as we don't make decisions so much around replacing parts of it, or we don't change the bearings in it, or this is more the hard stuff. But I understand what you're saying. From an asset perspective, does it have a value? It does. I'm not sure that it actually appears on the balance sheet though.
No.
No, but it's not just the dollar value of the allocations, Mr Mayor, but I look at if we go into drought and we have to look at, you know, dropping the pumps down further, if we have to look at treating much more turbid water, you know, that must play into this in some aspect, you know.
Yeah, not so
sure.
much. I guess, again, all the assets we have to respond to, say, a drought situation, so we certainly have a drought management plan, and the assets we require are largely there. We might operate them differently to respond to different circumstances that arise. But from the perspective of these documents, no, there's nothing in there that really refers to a drought situation or changing the assets to respond to that. I guess is the best I can...
And I think they're probably left at a higher level, that question, councillor, when you're looking at the system and the Lower Fitzroy, about where that, and they're doing that review at the moment with the regional water assessment about what the security and the like would mean for the Lower Fitzroy.
Yeah, and the fundamental is the purpose of this asset plan and local government is to look after the assets to deliver the service.
The service, yeah.
So I get your question, it's a good question, but I think it's just back there where we can't influence. What we can do is use the water wisely, and that's being conservation and drought management, but we can't influence or do anything to the piece of water sitting there. It's about the others.
No, but that's only a portion of it, and I understand what you're saying, but it would also be, you know, our allocation and what we do with our allocation, and whether there is a financial impact on what we do with our allocation, which then has implications for this.
Our allocation is fairly defined in what we must do with it, which is treat it properly and supply potable water to the community.
But the water sales is what...
Yeah, they're two different things, councillor. This asset management plan is about the assets and providing that water from...
Well, except our deficit wouldn't be the same. We wouldn't be in a deficit, depending
yes.
on the...
Yeah, we were in a deficit regardless of whether you put that money in or not. This is purely not enough dollars being spent on maintaining, renewing and repairing our hard stuff. That's all. That's the fact that exists.
Oh, it's not a... I see what you're saying.
Yeah. Okay, thanks Councillor Rutherford. Deputy Mayor, Councillor Fisher.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This is a really good report. It's a really good read. And Dan, Peter, Andrew, as well as Martin, this probably is a report that we've actually wanted that information probably for many, many years. And to have something there that was actually set it as it is, I thought it was really impressive. Probably the next stage that I want to ask the question is, we've got to take our community on this journey as well. It's a lot of information that's in this report we should be telling the community. You know, what we're doing, what we've found, and you know, over the next year, 2 years, 5 years, how we're going to address it. Because I think, and I was sort of going back and thinking, I remember my time as chair, a lot of this information the public would ask the questions, but we really didn't have all the information. So I commend you for this, but probably the next stage is, can we take some of this information and bring the community on that journey as well?
I think, Councillor, it's been a work in progress with a lot of the projects that we've been working on, and that information hasn't been readily available to be able to provide that back to the community. But I'd see the new term of the council as an opportunity to be able to take that forward. So it's great to be in the position we're at this moment, telling us that this is where we need to focus for the next short term to the long to medium opportunities and where that can go. So probably on that note, I'd take on board your comments there. And I'm sure Peter would take that as well. Councillor, if there's no further questions with that one, I'd just like to, I'm happy to move. Seconded Councillor Fisher. I'll put that. Those in favour? Those opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. Again, Dan, can you pass on, and Matthew, all the team, for the work that they did bringing that report? I know it's only a few pages on the report, but the work that's gone into gather that detail's quite significant. So thank you. Councillors, I might take a short recess for 15 minutes if that's okay, and I'll move that we adjourn the meeting and resume at 10:30. Put that. Those in favour? Those opposed? Motion's carried. Did I need a seconder? Good. There we go. I was
Everybody swimming.
Taking the good with the ups and downs. I wanna see how the world turns round. Let's go adventure in the deep blue sea. Home is with you wherever that may be. Home is with you wherever that may be.
Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind.
adventure in the deep blue sea. Home is with you wherever that may be. Home is with you wherever that may be.
Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming.
Taking the good with the ups and downs. I wanna see how the world turns round. Let's go adventure in the deep blue sea. Home is with you wherever that may be. Home is with you wherever that may be.
Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming.
Taking the good with the ups and downs. I wanna see how the world turns round. Let's go adventure in the deep blue sea. Home is with you wherever that may be. Home is with you wherever that may be.
Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming.
put that. Those in favour? Those opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. And councillors, I'm happy to move that we bring item 10.1, the McLeod Park drainage, as the next item of business. Seek a seconder. Seconded, Councillor Mathers. I'll put that. Those in favour? Those opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. Thanks very much, Martin, and we'll Groundhog Day.
Thanks, Mayor and Councillors. It is probably a little bit of Groundhog Day because McLeod Park seems to pop up quite regularly. About every second year we have a talk about McLeod Park. And obviously the council table are aware that Councillor Mather raised an issue there some time ago and was seeking some advice in relation to the ongoing drainage issues that we have at McLeod Park, and this report is trying to address some of those concerns. McLeod Park itself drains a fairly extensive catchment. There's about 120 hectares of land that feeds into to McLeod Park, and even in small rain events you will see that there is a level of flooding that happens in McLeod Park. Certainly in a major event you'll get anything up to 1.5 metres deep of water sitting in that park. It essentially is a detention basin, and it's quite critical that we keep it as a detention basin before feeding it out into the creek system. Over the years we've always had some issues with trying to keep the channel that feeds into the existing stormwater drainage in the park operational. It's a fairly flat drain, and at times if the water sits there we run into problems with I suppose the vegetation starting to grow on the bottom of the drain. So that's been a bit of a maintenance issue with us, and I think since this matter was raised a little while ago now, I think civil operations have been out and given the drain a good clean, and that's something that we need to keep doing. To keep it operational as a recreational or park or a sporting field and those sorts of things, it's important that we keep that drainage functioning, but we also need to address the issues with the actual playing surface drainage. And we've had a quick look at that as well, and we've noted, we undertook some survey out there, and we've noted there are a number of areas where it appears the field has sunk a little bit, and so there's pools and bird bars and that sort of stuff, particularly on that northern end. Now that's probably not unexpected if you go back to the early plans of the mosquito eradication plan of 1950 something. It was a swamp essentially that got filled and upgraded to a park, and so over time you may still have problems with a little bit of sinkage within that former swampy area. Looking into the future, a little while ago, in about 2016, we did identify some channel works that we should undertake to improve the performance of the drain. For various reasons that work hasn't been undertaken as other budgetary sort of pressures came to bear. That now sits out at 25-26 in the capital program. Back in 2016 we priced it at about 100,000. it's an engineering estimate. It's probably about 200,000 at the moment with escalation and those sorts of things. And that's just purely for improvements to the bottom of the channel, putting some subsoil drains in there, a little bit of low flow pipe and things like that to try and keep the bottom of the drain dry so it can be maintained and we don't get the amount of vegetation growth. The other aspect of it, in looking and undertaking the survey on the playing field, there's about 380 odd cubic metres of fill that would need to go in there and be returfed to try and get the actual surface draining correctly. Parks have done an estimate of cost on that, sitting around $70,000. The other thing that Parks are suggesting, if we want to return McLeod Park playing fields back to a playing condition in a very short time, is to probably introduce a grid of subsoil, a grid network of subsoil drains across the whole park itself. Now, our parks people have had a look at that and have approached a particular contractor that looks at doing those type of works to get an indicative cost. And off the top of my head, I think it was in the order of $280,000 to $330,000. Now, for council to consider that, I suppose that you would probably need to really understand what you believe the future of McLeod Park as a playing field is going to be, given that it's always going to be needed as a detention basin. I'd suggest investing a lot in infrastructure and amenities in that park might be difficult because they'll get wet, but you know, as obviously a playing field, whether it's touch football, football, soccer, whatever it may be, it's probably quite vital for parks to keep that surface quite good. I think Justin Bullwinkle might still be online if he wanted to add any comments, but at this point in time, the report is really just for Council's information. There's a number of things in there that Council may consider in budgets coming up as well, how much they want to invest into the playing fields in McLeod Park.
Okay, thanks very much, Martin. I've got some comments, but I'll leave them till the end. Councillor Rutherford, Parks portfolio.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. It's not a surprise to me at all. I've been through this quite a number of times. Just a little curious, but with the subsoil drainage grid, does that hold up through floods? So that we're talking mostly about stormwater here, but the park also floods. So once you put in one of those subsoil drainage grids and the park floods, what happens then? Do you have to rebuild that, or does it sort of survive a flood?
They should be built to survive a flood. It would probably come down to just how much silt came through in the stormwater running into the park. You may end up with a cap of silt across the top of that, which may have to be rehabilitated, but I doubt very much whether you'd be re-establishing the whole grid network itself. It would really probably just clearing out the top of might be the top inch or 2 inches of the filter, I'd suggest. I'm not sure if Justin may be able to add something there if he's still online.
You there, Justin?
What?
Yeah.
Yes, afternoon, Council, through the Chair. Thanks, mate. Look, I guess Jared, our coordinator for parks, he did a fair bit of work with one of the consultants and contractors, and in his experience, and I'm just echoing his comments here on an operational front, he's had a lot of experience across, I guess, his history in this park space using that kind of subsoil drainage solution. And to my knowledge and through his comments, it is certainly something that would persevere through that inundation. And I think while I guess more broadly speaking about McLeod Park is, and taking a step back, sorry, Council, obviously we've got a capital investment on a lighting front, and I guess this further comment was coming from a perspective of how can we maximise and utilise this space and see that return on investment. Obviously, the southern end of the field is certainly very playable and is well utilised by the community. So this subsoil drainage solution would be really designed to try and move that water, that retention water, away from the facilities at a quicker rate and potentially return it back to play. There'll always still be downtimes, from my understanding, through that, I guess, desktop assessment and quoting process that Jared has done. But it's just about to bring it back, I guess, to the activities at a quicker rate. And yes, ultimately it should survive the flood inundation or those larger water events, to my knowledge.
Thanks, Justin. Councillor Rutherford? No, you're right. Councillor Mathers.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Firstly, I'd just like to say thank you very much for holding this off for me to get here, so just I could hear a little bit about it, and also to officers. Martin, sorry if I've probably asked for this report to come, and it's the last one was probably before my tenure, so thank you also for indulging me with that. Obviously, we know that it's a good park and it can get used quite often, but the reason for this was the couple of questions I've got is in regards to I've got a comment first. Is we're investing the amount of money in the lighting, but if we get a big wet season or something like that, we're going to have a park there that, even though it's got these great lights, we can't use it that much, and that's why I wanted to have a look at it. But I've got two questions, and the first question is in regards to the drain to the north of it, which feeds out from the back of Bursiger Street State School, then down, and it turns south and goes down toward along Dean Street there. It says in the report that obviously that needs regular maintenance, but I think we know that that drain doesn't get regular maintenance. It's very regularly got long reeds and that sort of stuff in it. And I'm not a hydrologist or an engineer or anything, but I would sort of think that that would definitely add to the amount of water that inundates that northern end of the park, because the water can't get away. I'm not saying none of it would flow over the top, but you can see in heavy rains, Mr. Mayor, as well, it hits those reeds and it just backs up and it pushes straight over there. So it'd be interesting to see how much water we could keep off that playing surface just by maybe looking at upgrading that that draining system, or even, concreting it or something. I know it's expensive, but even keeping the reeds down would probably, I would think, would make quite a bit of difference. So that's the first question or comment I had. The second question I've got is, the report says that it was back in 2016 there was a value of $100,000 for the drainage, but there has been money allocated in the 25-26 budget of $100,000. I'm just wondering what the thinking behind that budget amount, like when we know that was from back in 2016, we know that it would be worth considerably more now, and you're talking in the vicinity of 200,000. I'm just wondering why was only 100,000 allocated. If we're going to do the job, why, I would have thought we would have allocated 200 for it, or we just wouldn't have allocated money at all for the project.
Through the chair, certainly from the budget point of view, back in around that 2016-2017 time, when it was estimated 100,000, the project was actually put in the budget, and it was probably within a year or 2 years of that estimate being done, and it was proposed to be delivered. We then had a number of budget pressures that's seen a lot of stormwater projects basically get either removed from the budget entirely or substantially pushed out. So essentially all we did was put that $100,000 that was budgeted at that time, and has just moved it out a number of years, and haven't updated that particular estimate at this point in time. We'll look at doing that in the next run on the next capital budget.
Mr. Mayor, if it's all right. So, Martin, would you think that, and I know it's something you probably have to look at in more depth, but would you think that doing more work to that drainage to the north of the fields, do you think that would go a long way towards helping some of the water that's spilling into that area? I understand it's a water retention basin. If it's big falls, we won't stop that. But that top end of that field gets wet very, very easily, very quickly, with not very big falls.
Yeah, I mean, certainly having the drain clean and functioning correctly will assist. The difficulty we got, it drains such a huge catchment that you're always going to get a fair body of water, even in the smaller, sharper type storms. You're always going to get a fair flow down there. Now, the ability of the channel to move that on is obviously impacted if we got 3 metre high reeds in the middle of the channel. So we do need to keep that clear so that can function that way, but I think you're always going to have some water spilling into that northern end of the field in any case, and then it's a matter, well, how quickly can we get that, once that peak of water is over, how quickly we can get that water back in the channel and moving again. And so we're suggesting there's certainly reshaping of some of the surface of those playing fields are necessary. We've picked that up with some survey, and Justin and Jared and that team through the parks are saying, well, you could even bring it back quicker by putting in this grid network of drainage. But unfortunately, it's such a huge catchment, you're always going to see water ending up on that end of the field, I'd suggest.
Yeah, understand. And just last one, Mr. Mayor, which is, I'm not sure how we go about that, Mr. Mayor, but is there any way that we could possibly, if we acknowledge that keeping that drain clear, if we don't have the budget to, at the moment to do something about it, is there any way that we could have a scheduled clearance?
Pathway request, Councillor. I go past this morning and it's choked again after the rain we just had.
Just through the Mayor, the other thing we have done is that civil operations keep it's already on the list.
Yep.
Or will be on the list. Okay. So they keep a list of priority locations for regular checking. I think this one...
Did Corey want to say something?
Yep.
So,
sorry, I'll just go to Corey first. Just grab a mic there. Thanks, Councillor Rutherford.
Mr. Mayor, Civil Ops says there's a low flow stormwater pipe there, 300 pipe, that's there that's supposed to drain the low flow and keep the channel dry to stop that reeds from growing. That unfortunately has some tree roots in it, and follow it. It's got some tree roots in it. We tried to clean that out, but the roots is just too aggressive. We can't get it out. So that may need replacing that section of pipeline as well, which could potentially add another $200,000 to the cost.
But probably a question through that. Would that be required though, if it was to be a concrete culvert to go through there? Would you require that low flow drain if you removed it totally and just had it on the, you know, as a concrete spillway or drainage?
The short answer is no, if you're going to build a concrete culvert or structure or something like that, but then very rough estimate, you're then talking over $1 million to run a drain, I would suggest, for that distance.
Yeah. I'm just going to jump in there. The problem we have here, we have spent lots of time, and we even did a pipe system underneath, is this is a detention basin first, and there's not much you can do about making this perform better for a sporting field. It's you could throw millions of dollars of putting pipe systems in, subsurface drainage like they do in a sporting thing. That's dry immediately after, but you're spending millions of dollars on potentially not much benefit, because it's so flat, it's going to silt up. Doesn't matter whether it's a pipe, a channel. You'll have sediment in your concrete drain. Beautiful. Then you'll have reeds back again. I just can't see you giving. I know what your objective is, but I just can't see for the money you would need to do that. It's the path to go.
Is it an abandoned asset then? Do we, if we're putting money in to do the lights and others, what are we really trying to achieve? And is there an ongoing operational cost of where they're cleaning it on a regular basis because it's choked? What is the outcome there? Is it just an ongoing?
I think that's what prompted.
Yeah.
Council made this original thing. Well, hang on, you're doing this capital spend. What about making it work more effectively? But I'm not sure we're there. We all could get there easily.
I mean, through the chair, even if it wasn't used as a playing field, it's still a detention basin. We would still have to clean that channel.
Yep.
You know, quite regularly for it to work properly.
I just, the cost to do that, would it be a larger investment? But if that's not going to, if a culvert's not going to reduce the ongoing maintenance still, that's the question I'd have to ask.
Sorry, through the chair, you won't get a decent culvert size in there because of the shape of the channel, because you've got such a high bank on the Dean Street side and you've got no bank on the playing field side. You're not going to get a decent culvert size in there, so you're going to end up with a culvert and
shallow.
And it's still you won't have a channel form. Then it'll basically be the park will be the channel. So for anything that is above the capacity of the culvert, the culvert capacity will be small.
What to do? Councillor Mathers, and I'll go to Councillor Rutherford.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, look, I understand it's I understand. I'm not asking for all this money to be thrown at it. All I was trying to get my head around is, it's been a major investment for the lighting, and we've still got a park there that can only be used from time to time if it rains. That to me, I'm just I struggle with a little bit. But if we know that keeping the drain clear, forget about building a concrete culvert, which I agree with Mr. Mayor would be a good outcome for us if we had the budget for it. If we know that keeping it clear will keep some of the water off it, which means we can use it more often, then at least that's justifying some of the capex that's gone into that park. If I have to just keep logging pathways for it, I'll keep logging pathways. But if we know that something needs to be done, I just don't understand why it can't just go on a schedule to be cleaned and maintained regularly.
It can, and I would recommend we do that rather than rely on pathways. But that means establishing a budget in civil operations. Because if I recall, I don't believe we currently have a budget specifically for creek maintenance. It was removed.
Right.
So we can do that. So at the moment it's reactive, not planned.
Yeah,
so
that's
a little bit like what Deb's about. This is just when you complain, he'll find effectively divert some maintenance money
into
to that task.
Yeah, and Mr. Mayor, and that's the thing, and I'm happy to do, but it's just, I keep an eye on the weather, but you still don't know. You drive around and go, oh wow, it's going to rain. I better get onto the guys to, clear that creek, clear that culvert, and then that can still take some time as well, because I understand how busy the teams are.
So we'll look at that in the budget preparation.
Thank you.
For maintenance, maybe not just that, other high priority areas, because there are some other high priorities that we have identified recently where we should maintain.
Thank you, Peter. I'd be interested to see where that's put into the budget when, if and when we're around next year. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Mathers. Councillor Rutherford and then Councillor Fisher.
Mr Mayor, I'd just like to maybe add a little bit of perspective, and firstly I'll tackle the clearing of the drainway, and I think if we could sort that out somehow, because this is not unlike Jardine Park, and I know the drain there, and sometimes when you do put in a request to have that tidied out, there's a little bit of argy-bargy between civil ops and parks as to where it actually lays. So we need to work through that. So someone is responsible for looking after those drainways to allow them to work. Now, with the likes of Jardine Park, exactly the same thing happens. It's a detention basin. It fills up, and then the grass netball courts are used as need be. If it's a wet season, you're not going to get on there, but as winter comes, for most of the time, it's fine. McLeod Park has been a really useful park for all its issues. It has been a useful park for the community for a long time. It's where we get to relocate people to when we're fixing up the other parks, the other fields, or the like. So it actually has been and continues to be a really useful park playing surface. We just have to acknowledge that you wouldn't want to be relying on it through that November, December into March period, because you'd never know how long you'd have it in a usable condition for, but certainly through the winter months it holds up particularly well. So the investment in the lights, I think, has been warranted as well because of the part that it plays in the broader parks network, but there's just always that acknowledgement that it's really not suitable for a home ground for anyone, because there will be large, 6-8 weeks where, and it's clay, that it's just going to be too wet for anybody to use.
Deputy Mayor, Councillor Fisher and Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm just sort of wondering whether there are some alternatives. The use of water-loving trees as planted around the perimeter, ones there that do have a high take-up of water. I know that North Queensland, they're used more often. Not only do they provide shade, but to draw up that moisture that forms. They can handle it during the dry times, but when the wet times are there, they could actually draw up more moisture than those trees would be able to take up. Is there some way there that we could actually use another method of getting shade to the park as well as addressing an issue?
How do I answer this one? Not my area of expertise, Councillor Fisher, and I'd probably defer to our parks friends to assist in that, but it has been known to be done before. There is already a line of trees along there. Whether they are the type of trees that you're referring to, they are certainly the type of trees that stick roots into our pipes. We've found that. So there's those sort of considerations, but it could be potentially a solution that would assist.
Justin? I think Martin's flicked that past to you, mate.
Thanks, Martin. Yes, I absolutely am parks through the chair. Thank you, Mayor. As for that specific question, I have to be honest, it's certainly not my expertise either on vegetation. So I'm happy to take that away and talk to my counterparts and cohort here and get a response back around that one. I did have a comment, and it was probably more so to echo Councillor Rutherford's comments there, and that notion in question around, you know, the lighting investment, I guess the history of McLeod Park and the future potential and value it adds to the community, even with these constraints and the fundamental purpose of it being a detention basin. And Councillor Rutherford, you nailed it on the head. I guess its existing value, and if we look at it on a percentage basis, there's about a hectare of that space, which is equal to about a league field, a rugby league field, that fundamentally really services the community well, whether that be for resting other facilities or overspill usage. Since the lighting was decommissioned or failed a little while ago, prior to the capital being allocated, we lost that footprint, we lost that serviceability of McLeod. So, and we've certainly felt that operationally across the region. So I guess just to reaffirm that there is certainly a massive value to bringing this facility back online. We've got a couple of broader projects in the region with obviously the state project with Brown Park. Over the next 2 years especially, McLeod Park will be heavily utilised with that lighting coming back online, and that will be predominantly based around the northern end. So, and look, the southern end in the dry periods, it will be activated wherever it can. So I guess I just wanted to echo that the community will certainly be reintroduced into that space and see a lot of value returned into that investment from the community. So, but as for that other comment, Councillor Fisher, I'll take that away, mate. We'll have a look at it.
Thanks very much, Justin, and thanks, Councillor Fisher. Councillor Smith, and we might wrap this one up.
Yeah, Mr Mayor, I did live around that area at one stage of my life, just up the road, and I always wondered whether the drains needed cleaning more, you know, and I think we just all touched on that. But I just wanted to mention that when we did the community consultation with the flooding, with the first and the second session, that was a clear concern from a lot of people that lived around the creeks, because they were the main ones that came to the consultation, was that we are not maintaining our drains. And I went like this, and this fellow said, oh, we go and clean our own out to stop getting flooded. And I know people that lived near the airport in the 2013 flood, I think it was, went and cleaned out drains to stop their places being flooded. So, and I know there's thousands of them to get around, and it's difficult. Yep. But the main ones, I think we should be.
It's hard to get to them all the time because you've got leaf litter that come down. We just can't maintain the whole system.
Yeah, and then people in the rural areas want theirs cleaned out too. The culverts are blocking up and pushing water back as well.
Yeah, it's a continual issue we manage in those times. But yeah, the other thing with that park though was that the riverine flooding now with Water Street and the North Rockhampton Flood Mitigation Project shouldn't impact on that park in the future with long periods of flooding rather than riverine flood separate to stormwater. So you'd hope that there isn't that sediment build up during those times in the future. Yeah. Anyway, that said, Council, I think we've had enough run around with this one, but we'll look at this in the new year and depending on the budget opportunities. Okay, Councillors, Councillor Mather, you're happy to move? Seek a seconder. Councillor Rutherford, I'll put that. Those in favour? Those opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you very much, Martin and Justin and the team for that report. Moving back into our agenda items proper, it's 10.6, the monthly project status report from Civil Operations for October, and I'll hand over to Corey to present that report. Good morning, Corey.
It is on. Mr Mayor and Councillors, just a quick update on the civil operations. We've graded about 45 kilometres of road in the rural areas and reseeded about 5.6 kilometres. And that program is continuing. On our design side, we've been able to keep up with the designs, so we're not waiting on any designs. That's still continuing. We've got a couple of projects that we've just put out on tender a couple of STIP projects, and in the urban area, our program is progressing well, although we're struggling with team leaders. We've got a shortage of team leaders, which do impact on our delivery. We're still getting through the program, and we believe that we will be able to deliver the full capital program this year. To the report, there's a couple of individual projects that's been reported on. Stanwell-Baroola Road, that's going well. We hope to have all the drainage in by Christmas. Scrubby Creek Bridge replacement, that's going well. We've been lucky there with dry weather when we worked in the creek there, and all the culverts is placed at this stage, and we're just doing the final wing walls and head walls there. River Rose Drive, that's progressing well. We're also delivering Stringy Bog Avenue there on behalf of the developer there. So we're doing a bit of extra work there for which the developer is paying. And that's about it.
Okay. Thanks very much, Corey. Councillor Smith, Portfolio Spokesperson, any comment?
Yeah, good report and good update on all the projects. You know, very, very busy at the moment. Everywhere you look down the street, we seem to be working. And yeah, I know I've tried to get that message across that we appreciate the public's patience in there's detours in place with these road closures. So yeah, it's a good report. I don't have any questions or queries on it. I think it was all pretty straightforward.
Okay, thanks.
Just the photo of the culverts at Scrubby Creek is interesting. I didn't realise they were all little ones, you know, down one end. If you look, it's got Humes advertised themselves very well. So they're all stamped. Yeah. But I think I did query last time whether it was culverts last time, because to me it was always a bridge, so it was culverts. We're just doing like for like, really. Yeah. Yes.
Probably a good question, though, Peter. Is the dimensions why they're smaller relevant? Oh, I'm not sure. No, I'm just saying why wouldn't they be wider rather than just having lots of smaller ones? Is it easier to change the road profiles? Not sure. Anyway, it's one I can take on notes anyway. That's fine. It's not a biggie. Just a question why there's so many. Thanks, Councillor Smith.
It's wider this time. Two lanes of traffic will be able to fit. So yeah, it's really, really good. Every project looks as if it's on track and everything. Pretty good.
Councillor Rutherford.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for the report, Corey. I just, with the annual reseal program for the asphalt resurfacing, it's only 10% complete, and I get that this one is to the end of October, so we're sort of 6 weeks past that. Will we catch up there? Is it, you know, do we wait till we've got a number of jobs and then come in and do them all at once? What's the story with that one?
Mr. Mayor, for you, yes, Councillor, we sort of in the first of the year do sort of concentrate on pre-seal repairs, so to prepare the roads for the slurry seal program. So our crews are more concentrated on that. Unfortunately, one of our bigger spends there on Alexander Street, we were going to use fabric and tensile for the asphalt resurfacing. Unfortunately, the supplier was unable to supply, and the earliest date that they're now talking is somewhere in December. We hope that can come online and we'll get that, and that is a fairly big spend in our program.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Councillor Smith. Rutherford, Councillor Smith, would you like to move?
Yes, thank you. Yeah.
Seconder. Deputy Mayor, Councillor Fisher. I'll put that. Those in favour? Those opposed? The motion's carried unanimously. We'll move on to 10.7, the Project Delivery Capital Report. Councillors, if we want to talk about the Mount Morgan Pipeline Project, can we leave that to the end? Otherwise we can, if there's no... Exclude...
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep. So first time, he's now reporting on all other projects
Except Mount Morgan, right, okay. Thank you, Andrew.
All right. Thanks, Mayor, Councillors. So I'd just like to present the a status report on the capital projects that we're delivering. So the first project, the Botanic Gardens Zoo redevelopment. So we've had tenders closed in mid-October for the amenities component of that project. We got some favourable results there and decided to look at the next stage, the multi-purpose room in stage 1B. We've had them now closed, and it looks like we have got a viable project, so we're just working through the tender adjudication process, and hopefully we can award to have stage 1A and 1B done next year. Botanic Gardens enclosure renewal program, so the detailed design's about 80% completed on the dome, and we've also been advised that we've now been able to progress to stage 2 of the Growing Regions program for that application there. Botanic Gardens pathway renewal, so all the concrete pathways under this current scope of works have been done. We've just got a bit of minor works to be done to the bridge there near the car park that's adjacent to the floral clock. That'll be hopefully done before Christmas. Athelstane Reservoir roof replacement. As you know, that project's on hold pending the delivery of the some structural steel, but we've programmed that now with FRW to start in April next year. Walter Reed redevelopment, so design development's underway with that, so we have a local architect and a heritage consultant engaged there to work through the all the issues there with that associate with that building, and to removing of that apartment and opening up for office space. Glenmore Water Treatment Plant roof replacement, so the admin building's basically done and the chemical store will be completed this week, and then I think next year we'll look at the after the other works is finished there, the major roof replacement over the filter gallery. Mount Morgan Pool, I was up there yesterday, so work's progressing well there. They just started to tile the pool shell. The plant room's roof, it's all built. They've got a lot of the plant filters and pumps in there now, and the roof should be going on the main entry and amenities building this week. So they're obviously pushing ahead. I understand the playground equipment has arrived at Port of Brisbane, so it should be all here after Christmas for installation. Airport air handling unit replacement, so that's basically done now. They'll do the commissioning of those units, finalise the commissioning next week, but that's all been done, I don't think, with any impact to the users of the terminal, so the project's now complete. North Rockhampton Sewage Treatment Plant, so we've hit a major milestone there. We've had the HV power cut over on the 24th of November, so that was all completed. So the contract is now just finalising, I suppose, the new plant, termination of all the power to all the plant and control systems. So it's sort of in pre-commissioning stages, and then they'll commence commissioning early in the new year. Gracemere and South Rockhampton STP strategy. So Gracemere, we've now completed and commissioned the aeration system at Gracemere. So that's been handed over to FRW. And the South Rockhampton, the design component of that electrical new caustic and sugar dosing systems is continuing. Glenmore Water Treatment Plant, there's been 5 filters now completed and put back in use. So I think filters 3 and 8, they're trying desperately to have completed prior to Christmas, and then there'll be another 3 that they would complete after in the new year. The lime system, I think, upgrades now in process proving period. I think by the end of next week that should come out of that. SCADA system is all completed, but that's being completed as new systems come online. Glenmore Water Treatment Plant Solar Farm, so pleased to advise that the transformers now hit the Port of Brisbane, so that'll undergo some factory acceptance testing down there, and they're hoping to have it transported up here prior to Christmas. So then that'll obviously be installed and commissioned after Christmas, and I think we're still looking around about March for it to go live. So that's it, councillors. Any questions?
Okay, thanks very much, Andrew. Questions, councillors, to those projects? Any questions there? Councillor Kirkland?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just a point of clarification, Andrew, if I could. On page 1 of 4, for the installation of the HV electrical conduit, this is for the Glenmore Solar Farm.
Yep.
Is the electrical works, is the HV kiosk, is that the same thing as the inverter installation or separate? Because further
I
down
believe
it talks about the inverter being done.
The inverters have been done, so they're installed. This is the transformer
Right.
to the HV conversion. I mean, I'm not over the technical side of things, but yeah.
I don't know your question.
The question is, so the high voltage kiosk and the communications cable that separate the inverter installation, are they separate to the inverter installation, and that is the converting of DC to AC? Because further down the report it says that the inverter is done. I looked at the kiosk, I just was asking your professional, it's two separate things?
Two separate things.
Okay, alrighty, thank you. That just wanted to be clear.
Thank you, Peter. Councillors, any further questions to those reports? A lot of work undertaken there again from the team. Peter?
Yeah, I just want to, for those who looked at the report, there's some new information in the report, and I won't do it now, but next year we will fine-tune this and explain what it means. So there was a section at the top of the report which shows you in percentage terms expenditure performance of budget versus plan versus actual, and it's got these percentages, and we'll explain it. Effectively, there's been a lot of detailed work for all of the projects in project delivery that maps out the actual planned cash flow by the contractor, and then this measures that performance against that target. So when it says 94%, that means we're within 94% of the planned expenditure of that particular project. So if you see 118%, that means we're ahead. So, but we will spend a bit of time next year just explaining how that works. Okay.
Thanks very much, Peter. It's getting a better handle on project timelines. Okay, Councillor, if there's no further questions to that part of the report, I'm happy to move, seek a seconder. Deputy Mayor, Councillor Fisher. We'll put that. Those in favour? Those opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. And we have conflicts, and we move on to the second part of that report.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks very much, Peter. Andrew, sorry, I'm all over the place.
Thanks, Mayor. So Mount Morgan Water Pipeline Project, so I think everyone's aware that we've now awarded the contract to Haslam Constructions and their subcontract partner, Vaughan Civil. We've had a start-up workshop early November. We've had a pre-design meeting in relation to the Razorback Road reconstruction with our civil design people late November, and we're going to planned another pre-design meeting for the pump stations and reservoirs next week. We do have a site meeting planned for this week. All the first draft of all the site management plans have come in, the quality plans, the health and safety plans, environmental plans, Indigenous participation plans have all come through for review. So we will progressively work through those with the contractor, and they've pretty well established themselves now out in our holding yard at Lucas Street, so they have water and power connections out there and a number of site amenities out there. So their intent is obviously early New Year. I think we're in week starting in the 15th of January is to look at laying pipe. So all the pipes, as you're aware, is we've procured are in the 2 locations, Lucas Street and Moonmera sites. Yep.
Okay, thanks, Andrew. The public consultation, Peter, are we going to the community to give them an update on once we've got some information to provide them? I think there'll be some questions from the community about project detail and timelines and the like.
Yes, the plans to do that. It's probably not consultation, it's probably
public
awareness.
Information, yeah.
Information sharing,
Yeah.
but it's definitely planned that we will do that.
Okay. Right, thank you. Councillor Kirkland?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Andrew, what's the percentage of local contractors and local suppliers that have been engaged for this pipeline? Can you give me a percentage of those that have been successful, either through Performance Civil or Haslam?
Not at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, it's early days, and actually right now most of what they've done is employed local people, but there's a monthly report that they will provide to us, and that's when we will get a handle on how that goes. On a project like this, I'm expecting about 50-50 is as good as we'll get, given the nature of the products and what we're doing. So, but it's in their interest to obviously use local. No, I mean a committee meeting. I won't go into names and all that, and we don't direct them.
Yep.
It's totally up to the contractor to go out. They've got a list of all the local suppliers, contractors, and they're working their way through that.
Yeah.
Thank you, thank you.
And a reminder that we're paying $16,000 a day carting water. We've got to get this project.
Yeah, that's right. Second question, if I may, Mr Mayor.
Yes.
Yep. Second question is just I noticed that in the chart here, the budget side is half red. Is that because of previous budget, or why is it red? Just wondering, have we spent more money, or why is it red?
I'll let Andrew answer the graph, but what I can tell you is that next week, in the report to council, there's a budget review, and we will be updating the Mount Morgan budget because we were never certain of the, we didn't have the full funding amounts in and all that, so I suspect that's why it's showing that.
So
Is that right?
That's correct. It's
That's
in relation
right.
to the funding unknown, where we were with the funding source. So
we could anticipate a different colour, is what you're
I
saying?
hope so, yes, absolutely.
Okay,
Back to
Let's
green.
hopefully we can start in the green and stay in the green.
That would be fabulous. Thank you, Peter.
Okay, there's no further questions. I'm happy to move. Councillor Rutherford, in a second.
Yes.
Do you have a question?
No, Mr Mayor, just I guess the community information session would be wonderful. There's still a lot of different stories getting out and about the community, so the sooner we can clear that up, the better.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's first point of order there. Okay, thank you, councillors. I'll put that. Those in favour? Those opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. And Andrew, I might ask you if you could invite the councillors back into the meeting, please. Moving on to item 10.8, the request for expression of interest for organic processing solution.
Good morning, Mr Mayor, Peter and councillors. So the purpose of this report this morning is to seek a resolution from council to release to the public expressions of interest for an organics processing solution as provided under the local government regulation. So under the resource recovery strategy, in which RRWR operate under, it sets out our targets and our vision for waste reduction and diversion from landfill. Key actions within the implementation of that strategy include obtaining a curbside organics collection service, and with that the procurement of an organics processing solution. And both of those actions are contingent on the other. So the request for expression of interest will address the strategic priority of building resource recovery capacity, which is key action 2.1.2, the procurement of an organic processing solution. Now, a bit of history before we get to the recommendation. In June 2023, RWR provided a report to Council detailing some of the barriers that were delaying our business case to be presented to Council for the organics curbside collection service. So those barriers included the odour risk rating assessments, which it puts obligations on our organics processors to have mitigation of odour impacts in place. It also highlighted the risk of new composting facilities and the inability to comply with the new licensing requirements under the model operating conditions of ERA 53. Those barriers have further proceeded into the modernisation of current processes as well, not just new facilities. It also highlighted the impacts of perfluoroalkyl and polyfluoroalkyl substances being PFAS, the limits that are now put on PFAS in composting end products. So this EOI will aim to identify an organics processing solution that will address those barriers. So currently within our curbside service, we provide approximately 33,000 residential homes with a weekly general waste bin and a fortnightly recycling bin. In the proposed curbside organics collection service, we intend to provide 29,000 curbside organic bins, whether that be FOGO or GO. That will be split up between 28,000 domestic properties with an opt-in allowance for 1,000 commercial properties. In that service, we have the potential to divert over 8,500 tonnes of organic waste from landfill every year. And to put that into perspective, that's about 16% of our landfilling waste. So through this procurement process for a curbside organic service, a business case will soon be finalised and presented to Council for consideration within this financial year. The preferred curbside collection service, being either GO or FOGO, that will be presented for consideration is dependent on the availability and feasibility of that organics processing solution. So this EOI does seek to identify a processing solution for the materials collected under each service so that we have options. The EOI will also offer the addition of our self-haul green waste that we accept at all of our waste facilities in its unprocessed form, so that will be in addition. So respondents to the EOI process will be asked to provide submissions for FOGO materials, GO materials, and then they may provide an additional submission for the self-haul green waste. We are also requiring that respondents to the EOI is for a site within the Rockhampton region, so it's not being trucked out somewhere else, and that they also comply with those model operating conditions that all of those barriers came into effect with. So respondents to the EOI will have the opportunity to be eligible to be part of the written tender process for any subsequent contract that we could put out for an organics processing solution, and those companies that do not participate in the EOI will not be eligible for that process. So in conclusion, for the finalisation of the business case for the curbside organics collection service, and to gain certainty regarding the availability and feasibility of an organics processing solution, the EOI aims to identify those options suitable for the Rockhampton region that comply with all legislative and licensing requirements. It is our recommendation that Council do grant the resolution to invite public expressions of interest for the organics processing solution as provided under section 228 of the local government regulation, and it's anticipated that this EOI would be released to the public in January 2024.
Okay, thank you. I've got a couple of questions. Councillor Deputy Mayor, Councillor Fisher and Councillor Latcham.
Thank you so much, Giselle. This has been a little while in coming, but I've got to commend yourself and Michael and the team. What you've put together and here, not only there is going to be great for Rockhampton region, but you've actually set a benchmark for the councils in Central and North Queensland. So I think this is a really great step forward, and I'm been quite excited ever since we did the trials, and I know that this is going to make a great difference long term for the Rockhampton region. But just as every time we're about to find a solution the way forward, there's a little bit of government legislation that sort of stands up as a roadblock. I think the way that you've negotiated these various roadblocks has really set a path forward, not only for Rockhampton Regional Council, but I know that there'll be a number of other local authorities within Central and North Queensland that are following our direction that would like to do exactly the same thing. So, Mr Mayor, this is a really good thing. It's a positive, and this shows the great work that has been done in Rockhampton Waste and Recycling. And I'd be happy to move or second this motion.
Thanks, Councillor Fisher. Councillor Latcham.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Through to Giselle, great report and great to bring it to the table. It's the next step in the sequence of events to ultimately have an organics processing in our region. I think it's a very prudent step to actually put out the expression of interest in order to see what is it going to cost, what is the feasibility of this project. It may not be feasible. That's an option. I'd like to think that there is an option, there is a solution, but we have to be prudent and make prudent and wise decisions as to our way forward. So thank you for bringing this to the table, and happy to move it.
Thanks, Councillor Latcham. Councillor Kirkland.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Giselle, thank you very much. Yes, I agree with my colleagues. Great progress in the area of our food organics and certainly our green waste. Two questions. First question is, what were the thoughts behind excluding expressions of interest in subsequent green waste processing if they haven't already put in an EOI for the organics? What's the thought around that? Because the landscape may well change. We may get people that move here that are setting up a business and happy to do that processing of green waste but weren't here for the EOIs for the organic. What's the thought process around not in letting them participate?
That's an easy one. That's under the local government regulation. That's under the local government regulation.
Okay, so they have to apply for both?
So they don't have to apply for both, but when we do go out, so anyone that applies or submits under the expression of interest, and this is for an organics processing solution, the self-haul green waste in itself is an addition to that. When we do go out for tender, it doesn't necessarily mean we will be going out for the entire amount.
Yeah.
We will be tailoring our contract that we do want to go out for exactly what we want processing for. So it may not be FOGO, it may be GO. It may be FOGO plus green waste. It all depends what we get back in this expression of interest as to how we tailor this written tender process and what will go into that.
Okay, thank you through you, Mr Mayor. Second question here. In the expressions of interest in communicating that, have you already been working with Advance Rockhampton to go out and to encourage new players in this space locally who may want to expand or start up business, or also going further and asking business to come here?
It's a formal process, Councillor. We're not out there actively.
So we're not actively,
we're putting this out.
We just put it out and hope that somebody sees it. Yeah,
However, if I may respond through the chair, we are working with Wade Clark as there are some niche areas out there that may be interested. We are also in contact with some organic processing solution businesses that may be of interest, because we do want to garner as much interest as we can in our region. We only have one processor in the region at the moment, and they have been great for what we have needed them for. However, we are looking at doing something very different. Currently, there isn't a council in Queensland who does have a full rollout of FOGO yet. So we are going to be one of the first to do that. However, everyone is taking the same steps we are right now and trying to find some kind of solution. So we are trying to garner as much interest as we can, and through the correct channels, through tenders and contracts, they will be touching base with those companies.
Excellent, thank you.
Okay, there are no further questions. Moved Councillor Latcham, seconded Councillor Fisher. I'll put that. Those in favour? Those opposed? Motion is carried unanimously. Councillors, that brings us to the end of our agenda items. We do have one matter to be dealt with in closed session. Just before I go there though, just wanted to say this is the last Infrastructure Committee meeting for this year, but also for this term of the Council as well. So I'd just like to pass on my thanks to Peter and the team that works behind it, bringing these reports to the Council table for us to make those decisions to take our region forward. Just on that note, pass on the thanks to everyone. Peter, thank you. But before we finish, we still have this item to be dealt with in closed session. So in accordance with the provision section 254J3 of the Local Government Regulations, Local Government 2012, may resolve to move the meeting into confidential items, and councils or member consider it necessary to close the meeting. Could I have a mover and a seconder that we move into closed session? Move Councillor Fisher, seconded Councillor Smith. Put that. Those in favour? Those opposed? Motion's carried. And a mover now that we move into closed session, Councillor Kirkland, and seconded Councillor Fisher. I'll put that. Those in favour? Those opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you. We are now in closed session.
Taking the good with the ups and downs. I wanna see how the world turns round. Let's go adventure in the deep blue sea. Home is with you wherever that may be. Home is with you wherever that may be.
Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming.
Taking the good with the ups and downs. I wanna see how the world turns round. Let's go adventure in the deep blue sea. Home is with you wherever that may be. Home is with you wherever that may be.
Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming. Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming.
Taking the good with the ups and downs. I wanna see how the world turns round. Let's go adventure in the deep blue sea. Home is with you wherever that may be. Home is with you wherever that may be.
Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming. would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming.
Councillors, the officer's recommendation that the Green Waste Management and Potential Future Risk Report be received. Move Councillor Latcham, seconded Deputy Mayor Councillor Fisher. I'll put that. Those in favour? Those opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. Councillors, that draws us to the end of our council agenda, and I'd like to thank everyone for your input for the last infrastructure for this year and for this council term. On that note, I'll close the meeting. Councillors,
The world turns round. Let's go adventure in the deep blue sea. Home is with you wherever that